We are delighted to see you all here this morning with us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Frank O'Mara. I'm the president of the Animal Task Force, and when this seminar finishes, I will go back to work in Teagasc, where I'm the director of research. So you're all very welcome here this morning to our seminar. The title of the seminar is What Livestock Has to Offer to Biodiversity and Health and Soils. And we are looking forward to a very good discussion this morning, and we have some excellent speakers lined up for you. The background to this seminar is that we had a session on the same topic. Before we move on, could I ask people to mute their microphones, please?
Frank, I have mute everyone, don't worry.
Okay, thank you.
We can do it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, I was saying the background to this seminar is that we had a session at the European Association of Animal Production Conference last December on this topic, and we are taking the knowledge that we gained from that session to this seminar here this morning. So just to tell you a small bit about the Animal Task Force, we're a European public-private partnership involving research organizations, farm and private sector organizations. So we cover the full production chain for the livestock sector. And the task we set ourselves is to promote a sustainable and competitive animal production sector in Europe. And the particular interest we have is to do that by fostering knowledge development and innovation in Europe. As I said, we cover the whole production chain. So the Animal Task Force produces a lot of very good documents, and the latest one is our Strategic Research Innovation Agenda, which you can see on our website. So if you could move on, please, Susanna. So this is the program for our session this morning. We're very lucky to have Humberto Delgado Rosa to set the scene for us. I'll introduce Humberto in a minute. Then we have a number of presentations, and I'll introduce each of the speakers when we come to their time. We'll hopefully have some time for questions and answers, and we will take a coffee break at 11:10, and then we will come back for a panel discussion. And again, I will introduce the moderator and the participants in the panel discussion at that stage. So look, I won't delay proceedings any longer. I'll just move on to introduce our first speaker. And we're very lucky to have Humberto Delgado Rosa from DG Environment, where he's Director for Natural Capital. And previous to that, he worked in DG Climate Action, where he was Director for Mainstreaming, Adaptation and Low Carbon Technology. And he's experienced in European and international environmental policy, particularly in biodiversity and climate change issues. And he's Portuguese, and he served roles in the Portuguese government, including Secretary of State for the Environment to the Portuguese government from March 2005 to June 2011. He holds a PhD in evolutionary biology. So Humberto, you're very welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Frank. I understand it's not my take. I first would like to thank very much the task force for this invitation, sharing some thoughts with you on these links between livestock and the environment, biodiversity. Let me just start by first reminding us that actually healthy ecosystems have always included large herbivores. Well before there were humans, there were large herds of wild herbivores having an effect in the ecosystem, shaping the ecosystem, bringing the variety, the diversity of habitats that also include this interference of the large herbivores. Now, of course, with humans, we have brought hunting to begin with, domestication, and we have replaced these wild animals by livestock, by domestic animals. And in Europe particularly, we are here for long as humans with our livestock. So farm animals have historically played a rather important role in the European environment and culture, and they are often an integral part of our current ecosystems and traditional landscapes. They have, to a large extent, helped shape them. Now, livestock nowadays uses a considerable share of agricultural land, be it directly as grazing area for livestock or indirectly for fodder production. I think that currently some 68% of the total agricultural land that is used for animal production. But traditionally, livestock was fed with grass and other agricultural byproducts, which is no longer true in many places in Europe. The past mixed farm model, which used to combine farm animals and crops, is becoming an exception rather than the rule. And it was actually such mixed model that was closer to mimic natural ecosystems and the role of large herbivores in it. So to begin with, and I'll start by the dark side, I'll go to the bright side a bit later, but indeed, as a result of the increasing agricultural intensification, the variety of animal farming systems ranging from extensive natural or semi-natural models to highly intensive farms in the other side of the spectrum, let's say the cursor today is leaning towards the highly intensive farms in many parts in Europe. And these are the ones that are very apart of any comparison with the normal ecological role of large herbivores. So in a nutshell, a significant share of the livestock production is nowadays achieved in animal farms with no crops. Livestock rearing is increasingly decoupled from grazing areas. The figures I have say that 57% of the cereals grown in the EU are used as fodder for livestock consumption, and grazing areas are decreasing in member states, whereas fodder imports are rising. So it's no surprise that in the current, in the current political landscape, now livestock and meat consumption is very often in the light spot, in the spotlight, associated with significant environmental impacts. And we should start by looking into this, recognizing them, and then see what can be done, not only to minimize them, but what are also the positive side of that livestock can have. But we should keep in mind, starting with greenhouse gas emissions, that the agricultural sector is responsible for some 10.3% of the use emissions, and nearly 70% of those come from the animal sector through non-CO2 greenhouse gases, methane and nitrous oxide. In some parts of Europe where there is big concentration of animal production, we do face severe pollution of soil, water and air. Some more than 80% of the nitrogen of agricultural origin in European aquatic environments is somehow linked to livestock farming activities nowadays. There's the emissions of ammonia. 90% of ammonia emissions of the agricultural sector are linked to livestock farms. So we should keep in mind that the conversion to less intensive farming practices is necessary if we want to get to sustainability. Unless those intensive farms would need, or in the case of livestock farming, intensive ones, to process the manure and export it, which does not configure the soundest way for a sustainable approach in any case. Now, a word on nutrients. Nutrients are a very important planetary boundary that is beyond the safe zone, including within the EU, as a recent report from the European Environmental Agency refers. We would need a reduction of some 70% of nitrogen losses, and a reduction of phosphorus losses by some 50%. And indeed, a lot of these losses are linked to livestock farming again. The nitrogen losses per unit of food protein from beef is indeed much higher, 25 times more than for cereals, for instance. So no surprise that you will find in the EU biodiversity strategy to 2030, as well as in the Farm to Fork strategy, the objective of reduction of nutrient losses by at least 50% by 2030. Also leading to the reduction of the uses of fertilizers by some 20%. For this, we will certainly use the instruments we have in our toolkit as Commission, like the Nitrates Directive, which limits the use of fertilizers to ensure that the losses are reduced, and the Water Framework Directive. Nutrient pollution is also the first cause of bad quality status under the Water Framework Directive. Now, the bright side, the positive contributions of livestock to the environment. It's a fact that extensive livestock systems can indeed provide significant benefits to the environment. They can contribute to preserve valuable ecosystems, such as grasslands, attractive landscapes, which would otherwise be at risk of abandonment, and they can help provide some significant ecosystem services, including maintaining healthy soils and increasing soil organic matter. Indeed, soils deserve a bit of a word here, because we all understand healthy soils underpin all agricultural production, and they also underpin a series of other ecosystem services, from carbon sequestration, climate regulation, water purification, nutrient regulation, etc. And soil organic matter, in addition to providing nutrients and habitat to the organisms in the soil, it also improves the water holding capacity of soil, soil fertility, microbial function, and very important, carbon sequestration, plus reducing risk of erosion and resilience to compaction. So building up soil organic matter is very important because it does require decades, so it's better to prevent its loss. It is rather critical to sustainable agriculture that the organic wastes are returned somehow to agricultural land to avoid soil nutrient mining. And it's actually the spatial disconnect caused by the segregation and industrialization of livestock systems is identified as a major constraint to this sustainable nutrient recycle. Another element is science does show that soil organic carbon stocks tend to be much higher in organic farming than in non-organic farming systems. But if we look into the why, the observed differences are mainly influenced by practices typical of mixed farming, which are much more frequent in organic systems. So livestock plus crop production, which help this recycling of organic matter via the manure and the forage legumes in the crop rotation. So if organic farming has these measures, they can in principle be applied to any agriculture production system, the mixed approach. And this does show the importance of sustainable soil management in farming and the role of livestock for it through these mixed farming approaches. By the way, we are in the European Commission now preparing the new soil strategy that is announced, and we plan to adopt it later this year. We will be looking forward for input from stakeholders, and the open consultation is ongoing until April 27. So please, if you have opinions on soil, don't hesitate and bring them to us. Now, more specifically on livestock and biodiversity. I've already referred the problems that intensive livestock farming, overgrazing can have, including as a driver of soil infertility or desertification. So the sustainable soil management and new management techniques, including through integrated and extensive livestock farming, is actually required if soil productivity and environmental quality are to be maintained. The extensive animal farming uses local forage resources through grazing. So more often than not, it contributes to preserving local breeds and varieties, well adapted to the local environment and climatic conditions, and only requiring few external inputs, be it in terms of feeds or energy, while providing ecosystem services and valorizing grassland plant diversity. So in essence, livestock grazing, properly managed, extensive, is a key activity to preserve permanent grasslands, which very often are in protected areas such as Natura 2000 areas or high ecological value areas in any way. We do have many types of valuable grazing ecosystems in Europe, just as those linked to silvopastoralism and agroforestry, and I would like to bring two examples. One is from my own country and Spain, in the Iberian Peninsula. The dehesas in Spanish or montados in Portuguese are a very good example of sustainable grazing systems. They are traditional agro-silvopastoral systems of high natural value, around 3 million hectares in Spain and Portugal. And in these systems, trees, grasses, crops, and livestock interact positively under management. So they constitute a healthy ecosystem with human influence. We are also part of the ecosystem. So they are man-made systems resulting from a certain degree of simplification of the Mediterranean forests, characterized by elm oaks, cork oaks, and shrublands, and they have attained, through a virtuous management, reducing tree density, eliminating shrub cover, and favoring the grass layer by means of grazing and crop culture, they attain some of the best preserved, low-intensity farming systems with extensive livestock in Europe, maintaining soil and biodiversity. The second example is linked to a LIFE project, the LIFE program dedicated to the environment and climate. We have launched a project funded by the EU called Graze Life, precisely to look into what is the role of animals, including livestock, in providing ecosystem services. It has looked into extensive grazing, both by domestic livestock, semi-wild and wild. The project is still ongoing. We wait for it at the end of this year. And it has focused particularly on using grazers for wildfire prevention, which is particularly important in some places in Europe. What does it demonstrate? It demonstrates that natural forests that include occurring populations of free-roaming herbivores can boost biodiversity and reduce the scale and the impact of climate change, including megafires. So the message is these natural forest mosaics with associated plants and animals function as an healthier ecosystem again. And large herbivores are key architects of these ecosystems. They facilitate spontaneous regeneration, carbon storage, and so they serve as wildfire prevention through the removal of fuels. And this can also be done through domestic livestock properly managed, which is the main message I wanted to bring to you on this. So large herbivores can indeed represent a cost-effective and nature-based solution to protect forests from wildfires, replacing or complementing active management by humans. So the dense forest plantations with contiguous shrubby landscapes are the more vulnerable ones to large-scale wildfires as compared to grazed habitats and mosaic landscapes. So reaching my conclusion, the increasing intensity of livestock farm systems is the challenge from the environmental point of view, as we've seen, contributing to global warming, water and air pollution, soil degradation, biodiversity loss, but there are many good examples that show that extensive livestock systems are actually part of the solution by providing an economic basis for rural areas. So we should ensure that the new CAP legislation is fit for these challenges, the challenges of facing a transition to sustainable agriculture, including sustainable animal farming and regenerative grazing. That would help the achievements of the targets in the biodiversity strategy and the farm to fork strategy. I will stop here with many thanks for your attention. Back to you, Frank.
So thank you very much, Humberto. That was a very good overview, and you certainly set out the challenges for the livestock sector and also the opportunities, at least for extensive livestock systems. And hopefully we'll get a chance to tease through some of those points later on.